The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Folks, we have a signal boost here. Tomorrow, Tuesday, February 11, Senate Bill 1031 is going to be in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. This bill is going to provide better guidelines for our health districts. So it was scheduled to be today, but I just got word that the hearing for this particular bill is moved to tomorrow. So please keep checking back to make sure that it gets updated on their website. But Senate Bill 1031, this is being presented by Senator Brian Lenny in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. You'll want to register to testify online if you're not in the area to go in person. You can also email the committee there, shel@senate.idaho.gov, in order to send in an email to support Senate Bill 1031. I kind of want to show you what this bill does. So right now, what the law looks like right now is this, and I'll read it to you. This is a Chapter 4 under the Health and Safety of Idaho statute, Chapter 4 here. This pertains to the powers and duties of our health district boards. And right now, if you look at number 2, some of it's highlighted there. Right now, it says that these health districts are to do all things required for the preservation and protection of the public health and preventative health, and to enter into agreements with the Director of the State Department of Health and Welfare, to the Director of Environmental Quality, to provide services and other things as specified in the agreement. What this bill does is it deals with the word "to do all things required." Okay, that's what happened during the pandemic, is that the health districts took it upon themselves to do all things required, meaning they handed out mask mandates. They did all sorts of things, shutting down offices and buildings and having people work from home and across the government, because the health districts had the power to do all things required. This is what the new language looks like. Let's switch it over here. And let me see if I can get myself in closer here. It strikes out the words "to do all things required," and it says to take only actions specifically authorized by state law that are necessary and reasonable for the preservation and protection of the public health and preventative health. And preventative health measures may be taken only in cases of demonstrated immediate public health risk supported by scientific evidence. So, for instance, staying 6 feet apart in a courtroom or at school is not based on science. Okay. The board shall not engage in broad or arbitrary actions in the name of preventative health. Folks, you can go to the website and look at this. This is Senate Bill 1031. And this is see, these small little details are exactly what boards like this look at when they say, well, it says we can do all things required. And so while we champion bills like, putting it explicitly out there that we can't have governments mandating masks and that you can't require a vaccine in order to enter a building or to get a job, that this type of language here, although it seems so minor, it seems so non-significant, it truly does have ramifications when it comes to protecting our rights. And so this bill is extremely important. So let's throw up that graphic again. This is our signal boost here. We want you out there making sure to get your voice heard. Senate Bill 1031. This will be tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. in the south, 2 p.m. up north if you're going to register to testify online. But call the Health and Welfare Committee. Show your support for this bill. Senator Brian Lenny will be bringing it to the committee tomorrow. Very good. All right. If you have any other questions about that, you got to go. You can go to our Telegram channel or go over on X, and you'll find a link directly to the bill, and then you can read up on it yourself. Okay. The House and the Senate. Look at me. I'm a mess already. We were getting ready with this signal boost and all of such. So, but the House of Representatives and the Senate are both in session at the moment, and they have just passed the what is it? What do we call it? HCR2? Is that what it is? The concurrent resolution on applauding the Boise State women's volleyball team for not showing up and putting themselves at risk playing against some male students that have been enrolled against was it San Jose State? Was that the school? I forget what it was, but it was but you guys know the story. And so the Senate just passed that by a voice vote, and so there you have it. That's very good. It's on its way, and we commend everybody for doing that. San Jose State University. Okay, we have a lot to get to today. On Friday we were watching the House debate the school choice tax credit bill, and it passed the House, and now it's on its way to the Senate, and so we'll see how it goes over there. But what's very interesting, of course, is how this, of course, ties into our public school system, monies at public school system, and it kind of shined a light a little bit on the problems, again, that we have with our public school system. And what's really interesting is how much we love our teachers, right? I mean, that's you almost have to say that all the time, right? We love our teachers. There are a lot of great teachers in Idaho. But there's also something called the Teachers Union. And the Teachers Union in Idaho is the Idaho Idaho Education Association. That's the Teachers Union. It doesn't say Teachers Union in the title. It just says Idaho Education Association. And so it just sounds like a big positive pro-education, pro-teacher, pro-student, organization, but they're the union. That's the Teachers Union. We tried to do some research, and we think we came up with a good estimate of how many teachers are in this union, 16,000. We could be way off. I don't know, but that's our good estimate at the moment. And so there's a lot of folks in this union. Now, how the unions work here is that you have to pay dues, right? You got to pay dues to your union. And so the system that we have set up right now is that when you are a teacher and you're in the union, you get your paycheck every pay period, and a portion of your check has been deducted already and sent to the union as part of your dues. It's automatically taken out and sent to the union as part of your dues. I believe if you're somebody in this state, you can opt out of being in the union, but you have to go through a process to opt out so that your money doesn't get taken out. But otherwise, it does, and it just gets sent to the union to cover your dues. Representative Judy Boyle had a bill this morning in House State Affairs that essentially would say the state isn't going to do that anymore. If you want to pay your union on your own, then you can go ahead and set up a system to where you pay it directly. And so that's what was going on this morning, and we're going to cover that right now with some clips and some interesting conversations. We're also going to dive into a little bit more about the Idaho Education Association, and who's involved there, and what they promote and what they're focused on, because it's fairly bizarre, and there's some interesting bedfellows and interesting supporters, so to speak, that they have. But real quick, let's take you, if you can, guys, let's check in on the Senate. Senator Tammy Nichols is presenting Senate Bill 1026. If we're able to bring that up, I'll let these guys give a moment here to bring it up. But let's listen in here to Senator Tammy Nichols. This is the bill that would allow chickens. You can have chickens in your backyard. Let's listen.
Banning backyard chickens outright. However, it still allows HOAs to establish reasonable regulations, including requiring proper coop placements, implementing waste management guidelines, prohibiting roosters, and setting reasonable flock sizes based on lot size. This is not about forcing chickens into every neighborhood. It's about allowing families some choice. Some have raised concerns maybe about noise, waste, and property values, but let's address some of those directly. Noise. Hens are quiet. The primary noise comes from roosters, which this bill already addresses. Compared to barking dogs or lawnmowers, hens are far less disruptive. Waste and cleanliness. Will properly maintain coops do not produce odors or attract pests any more than an outdoor dog kennel. Simple HOA guidelines can ensure responsible ownership. And property values. Cities across Idaho already allow backyard chickens, and there's no evidence that this negatively impacts property values. This bill is about fairness and freedom, about allowing homeowners to make decisions that benefit their families without unnecessary restrictions. SB 1026 empowers Idahoans to take charge of their food supply, reduce grocery costs, and maintain a connection to Idaho's agricultural roots. The state has a role in preventing HOAs from unreasonable restricting homeowners, just as we have done with solar panels, political speech, flags, and water conservation. With that, Mr. President, the debate is open.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President, debate in favor.
You have the floor, Senator Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, as a family of 5, we go through eggs quite readily. And just the last 2 years, we've seen a 60-pack
Okay.
go from $10.
Very good. Senator Josh Kaiser rising up to this egg thing. It's a big deal, man. So this is a good bill. This is a good bill that's going through. So we'll keep tabs on this. We don't have to spend too much time watching this one. Over in the House, Representative Jaron Crane just rose to present this bill on immigration. This is a bill that would further criminalize the act of being here illegally. And this bill I don't think it made it out of committee, or it was voted down in the House last year. I forget where it died. It did die by a vote, though, I think, in committee. But here it is, or maybe not. I apologize. But here it is again, and so we'll keep tabs on that as well as we go through this. But let's get into this. Stuff this morning. So again, let's bring up the language of the bill, because this would actually show what we're talking about here. This would add a new bit of language to our code, and this, of course, again, is on funding teachers unions. So this is the new code: taxpayer funding of teachers unions prohibited. No public official in a position of authority over a professional employee may use or authorize the use of taxpayer funds to promote teachers unions by, and then there's a list here, by deducting dues, fees, assessments, fines, or contributions from the pay of a professional employee on behalf of the teachers' unions or its affiliate. They will not be allowed to increase a professional employee's compensation with the intent that the additional compensation or part of it be used to pay a teachers' union. So there's so much involved in all of this, because when I think about the historic investments and the teachers' raises and so much money being sent into the public school system in order to help teachers, right? In order to help the pay of teachers and so forth. You just think about how so much of that increase in pay also can go towards these unions. And why do we have such a big problem with these unions? Well, if you take a gander over at the IEA website, the Idaho Education Association, you're going to see a lot of interesting things. Now, it just looks like your typical website here, but this is all about defending educators. And so just like any sort of big organization, they're going to have all their various things here. But one of the things that's really fascinating, if you've been watching this program, we've been watching this here, is we've been watching this no flags in school bill, right? The idea that we should only be displaying the American or the Idaho flag in schools. Well, over on the IEA website, they have this little quote banner promoting a teacher saying, "This is why I display a rainbow flag in my classroom. It shows these students that their lives have worth. This is not a political statement. It's simply a means of suicide prevention." Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? First of all, this quote, right? If you want to show your students that their lives have worth, why not show them a flag like the American flag that has hundreds of thousands of people who have died to defend that flag and to defend our freedoms, right? You want to talk about a flag that shows that we have worth? It's the American flag. And to sit here and say that this is not a political statement, that is simply a means of suicide prevention, I mean, the gall, as if a flag, as if the display of a flag is what is going to prevent a mentally ill child from committing suicide. This is grotesque, this quote that is on the Idaho Education Association website. This is on their front page. This is what they posted to, Facebook? Right? So this is the teachers union, folks, the Idaho Education Association. They are also an affiliate, right? They're affiliated with the National Education Association, which is the largest labor union in the entire country. It's the big giant enchilada of unions, the teachers union, right? And they push all of this DEI stuff. And we're going to get into some of these clips and show you, but I wanted to show you that real quick, what's on there. You can go to their Instagram feed. You can go to their Facebook feed and just look at all of the different DEI and equity nonsense and all the woke garbage that they're promoting and posting on those pages. But I also want to point out real quick, since we're here at the top of the show, who else is on that website? Who else decided? Can you go back to that website, and at the top, there is a go all the way to the top, and there's a button that says something about like, where is it? It's all the way at the top. Is it not up there? No. Can you go to the front? Yeah, there. Oh, look who it is. Look who it is, folks. It's Brad from Emmett. He's really famous in Idaho. That's Brad from Emmett. Brad Little cut a video for the IEA. Talking about how meaningful teachers are. Now, of course, the sentiment of the video is honest. It's fine. But we have the governor, Brad Little, on a website, a highly partisan website, promoting and taking a stance against bills that he's about to sign. Because he's on this website, do we already know if he's going to sign that flag bill, if it should pass? There's also an article right there. You can see it. House voucher bill sails through. The voucher bill. That's it's not a voucher. It's the school tax credit bill that passed the House on Friday. So all of these things on here, and then you got Governor Brad Little with a video, cutting a video. You know who else is on here too? I can't believe you guys can't. There's a section where it just has all the videos. I don't know why the menus. No, it's all the way over to the left. Is there a button at the left over there? Because of an educator. Yeah, there's a few more folks on there. If you go to the tab that says because of an educator, I guess you don't have you. If you scroll down, there's some other folks on there. Yeah, because of an educator. Scroll down. Look who it is. Debbie Critchfield, Secretary of the Education as well. She's another elected official that's on this site. This is a union site. These are the people that are pushing this woke garbage in our schools, folks. The union. These are the teachers' unions. Okay. It's time to break the back of these people that are harming our children. This is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that quote down there, I'm just beside myself. Absolutely beside myself. Okay, let's let some of the legislators talk about this. Representative Bruce Skog was questioning, was it Maxford over at IFF? Maxford from IFF was, he was there talking, I'm sorry guys, he was there talking in support of this bill to stop the pay going, to teachers unions, and Representative Skog had some questions for him. So let's watch this.
At the NEA website, which I understand gets money from the Idaho Education Association, is that correct?
I think to phrase it more precisely, the National Education Association gets a cut of the dues that any member of the teachers union in Idaho pays. I think the IEA would say we don't fund the NEA, and that may technically be true. The local union keeps its portion of the dues and forwards part of the money to the NEA and part of the money to the IEA. But yes, your point is true. The dues paid by Idaho educators are funding the NEA. Yes.
Follow-up? 2 follow-ups, if I may. Do you know about how much money goes to the NEA from the Idaho Education Association or other teachers unions in Idaho?
Maxford? Mr. Chairman, Representative Skog, my understanding is that in this academic year, the NEA portion of the dues equates to about $213 per member. Follow-up?
Yeah, I'm looking at this website, and it looks like it's all about DEI, promoting DEI. The NEA, I quote, the NEA has spoken out against anti-DEI bills and attacks on DEI programs. Will this bill prevent me as a taxpayer, my money from going to promote DEI programs through the IEA and NEA?
Maxford? Mr. Chairman, Representative Skog, I think certainly you are correct in your assessment that the NEA is an extremely ideological and a very politically polarizing organization. The Wall Street Journal has acknowledged that the teachers unions like the NEA and the AFT are among the most progressive and ideological organizations that there are in this country. Now, that's not to say anything good or bad about them from a policy standpoint. The point is just they are polarizing, they are politically active, and they have an ideological agenda. And our position is that taxpayer funds and resources should not be used to fund that kind of ideological agenda any more than they should be used to fund, for example, the agenda of the National Rifle Association. And I think this legislation that Representative Boyle has brought forward would do an excellent job of making sure that that type of ideological activity is not being supported with Idaho taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, well said. I mean, as I mumbled through my intro to that, that's exactly what we wanted to see. And he's from the Freedom Foundation, not the Idaho Freedom Foundation. There's a lot of freedom folks out there, but that's I think more of a national or regional organization, the Freedom Foundation, not the Idaho Freedom Foundation. So just want to make sure you get that on the record. Now what he said there, of course, is like how is it that we are, we saw Representative Todd Achilles say, well, you're not really saying the government is funding the teachers unions because this is a teacher's pay, right? And so the teachers can do whatever they want with their pay. However, Representative Joe Alfieri can take issue with some of this comment here.
Well, I may agree with some of my colleagues that there are some gray areas in this legislation where you can argue that the union or the school district has stepped over the line. There are more than enough instances where there is a direct violation of the school actually subsidizing union activities. And I will point to my district, and that is Coeur d'Alene 271, where the union president is paid 38 days out of the district's budget to participate in union activities. That's got to come to a stop. The taxpayer should not be subsidizing the union. It should not be subsidizing any organization. That is out of the pocket of the taxpayer, and that is absolutely wrong. So I am wholeheartedly in support of this legislation.
Yeah, there it is right there. You know, all of the activities that can go on where you're still drawing pay is unacceptable. That's unacceptable. And any union activity, anything you do outside of your duties as a teacher, that's on you. That's on you. And you want to join a union, then you go over and you sign up and you do it on your own. The state does not need to be expending resources to be pulling your money from your paycheck and sending it to a teachers union, especially here in Idaho when the whole union is pushing all this DEI nonsense, right? I mean, this is common sense. This is common sense. This was Representative Judy Boyle's bill here. Let's listen a little bit to her closing on this.
Mr. Chairman and committee, this has been an interesting hearing for sure. I wanted to, mention there are 32 schools in Idaho, public schools out of the 115 that do not have unions, and yet they collaborate just fine together without having the taxpayers paying for union activities. Again, I want to bring to your attention on page 2 the exceptions that they can use. So that is lines 1 through 34. They can have a negotiated agreement with the district for time off without pay and benefits. They can take their personal leave, and the unions can reimburse the district. So we're not saying that they can't do any of their activities, just that taxpayers should not have to pay for these. So there are some examples here I'd like to give you of districts who use taxpayer dollars for this. There's one district that 25 days of release time for union members are paid by the taxpayers. Another one, 1 year for their association president can take an absence of leave with their salary still paid. So that teacher would have a substitute for the entire year. Now, when my kids were in public school, I certainly wouldn't want to have different substitutes the entire year teaching my third grader something. I don't believe that's right, but again, if that's what they want to negotiate and pay for with their own funds, I guess they could do that. Another one,
Okay, very good. So that bill passed in committee. Only a couple of folks voted in the negative as it went forward. So that's a great sign. It's going to head to the floor where I'm sure there's going to be a lot more healthy debate on this. But that's why we wanted to get you up to speed on who this IEA is, because they're the teachers union. You might be thinking, okay, the teachers union don't care. I'm all about this. But what is this IEA stuff over here? And the IEA is the teachers union. And you go to their Instagram, you go to their Facebook, you go to their own website, and they have all this woke nonsense DEI garbage, right? And then you got Governor Brad Little and Debbie Critchfield on there, promoting them. What other unions are they? I mean, where else are they with promoting unions with all this woke garbage? That's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. They're all leftists. They're all leftists. I mean, that's what these teachers unions are. They're the biggest leftist pro-union in the country. And so this bill is going to help break the back of that stranglehold that they have on our education system. I'm telling you, folks, this is the war to have. It's a spiritual warfare for our children, and this is what's going on. And this is this kind of stuff that we need to pass. And we've been trying to do it for a number of years. This bill has been in some form or fashion in other hands before. But this is the year we got to do it. This is the year we got to do it. So we'll keep tabs on that as that heads to the floor this week. It might end up there by Friday. I don't know. We'll see. The House has adjourned for the day. They just passed the bill. They passed that immigration bill, which we saw. 61-9 was the immigration bill. And then they just passed the Senate Concurrent Resolution 102. That was overwhelmingly passed. I don't think I have the final tally here, but it absolutely passed in the House. 102, yeah, as you see it there, that's the committee to study the COVID response. Senator Dan Foreman brought that over in the Senate. And again, this is just to convene a committee to go through how Idaho responded to COVID. And even before this committee gets done, we know a lot of the things that need to be changed, which of course is why we have that signal boost out for tomorrow. You need to call up the Health and Welfare Committee and get that other bill, Senate Bill 1031 across the line over there. All right, folks, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
Folks, I'm just over here looking at this IEA website. Can we bring it back up again? I'm telling you guys, it's when you spend 15 minutes just poking around this stuff, you see all the flowery, great language, because of an educator, and I'm so glad for this, so glad for that. But all you got to do is poke around and find out that this is a weapon against your values. All it is. It is a purely partisan organization. Right there on their website, if you go to the Take Action button and hit 2024 general election results, you guys see that? Yeah, go to the there it is, the general election results. You just scroll right on down, and they have all of the districts and who they endorsed in the election. And I'm sure during the primary, they may have had that as well, endorsed folks. So make no mistake about it, folks. This is where the teachers union dues go. They go right here. It's all about political action. It's all about political action. And these same people, these same lobbyists show up and demand more public dollars to go to public education, right? Look, folks, we have an argument out there right now where people are freaking out at the mere thought that the government would send $5,000 to a family to educate their child in some sort of non-public school environment, right? They freak out about that. Yet nobody is complaining about the $10,000 that it takes to educate one child in the public school system, right? There's nothing about that. In fact, they always say that that's not enough. Idaho spends the least amount per student in public schools, right? And that's always looked upon as a huge negative. We're the worst state in the nation. Well, that's what they say. We're the worst state in the nation when it comes to per student dollars, right? There's some states, some areas where it's $26,000, $28,000, maybe $30,000 per student per year, right? And we're down here in 10 land as the worst. And they want more and more and more. Yet when it comes to saying, well, what about a parent that just wants to take $5,000 or less than $5,000? That's the max is $5,000 for this last bill that passed the House, right? You can have your opinions all about whether or not we should be doing any of that anyway, but come on. I mean, have a little dignity, have a little consistency with your arguments. It's atrocious. I want to bring in here, if he's ready. Is Brian Allman ready? Is he with us here today? There he is, sir. Getting that jacket ready. That's right. Caught you off guard. Brian, good to see you, my friend. I'm speechless when I look at this teachers union business, this bill that went through the House State Affairs today to stop the government from sending money out of the teachers' pay to, and covering all of the expenses when teachers want to go do union activities and all of that stuff. Because when you go look at the union, you go look at the Idaho and that's just the Idaho one, right? The Idaho Education Association. And they're just blanket openly woke, their colors may as well be the Six Flag rainbow.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've even heard people say that the Idaho Education Association is a much more moderate teachers union than their sister organizations in other states, which says a lot, after what you showed on their website. They're definitely a very partisan organization, ideological, pushing us in one direction. Remember during COVID when they were shutting down schools and teachers union representatives were saying that it's racist to demand that we open schools again, and fully supporting mask mandates and vaccine mandates.
And plexiglass, right?
And as we've seen with this whole USAID thing and all the other things going through the federal government, it's like leftists, they seized control of the government and just assume that the purpose is to fund their pet projects. So they're happy to continue funding teacher union activities because that promotes their, revolution or whatever. But then, you come out and say, well, what if we send $5,000 to in a tax credit to a family, like you said, and they, everybody loses their minds because that's not how the system's supposed to work.
No, it's not. It's not how it's been designed. It's not how it's been taken. I mean, maybe in the beginning, right? When we think about the public school system and all of the things, we see some folks coming in with like the whole Bible, reading Bible verses in class and stuff. They're like, when schools started, we were a different country, right?
Yes.
And now the teachers unions have complete control over our system. So much so that it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal for the governor of a state to go do a video for a teacher union. Like, no big deal. No big deal. I mean, what if he went and offered his services to another organization that was pushing something that was against the bill? Yeah, I'm just a story submitted by Brad from Emmett. Come on. Come on.
Yeah, that's one of those things in our society where for most people who don't pay attention to politics, Of course, everybody loves teachers. Teachers are, self-sacrificing. They love children. They're trying to educate the next generation, or at least that's the ideal. Your mileage may vary. And so you figure, well, the union representing teachers, they must be, benign and beneficial as well. And that's, I think, the story that they want to share. I remember 26 years ago when I took my first ever college class. It was an introduction to elementary education because I thought I wanted to head in that direction. And basically the instructor on the first day was lauding the teachers union, saying that we love the union. They do such great things for us. And so that indoctrination, every teacher who gets certified comes through this gauntlet where they not only have to try and accept all the, the indoctrination and the leftist ideology, but also a complete support and love of the union itself. And obviously there's some conservative teachers who resist that, but most, I think, would just end up going with the flow. And so you get a very devoted, workplace, and it becomes a self-referential thing that's feeding in and of itself and just growing ever more powerful.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I don't know how much of an effect this bill will have if it does become law, but I imagine, just like in any union situation, that there are teachers out there that don't wish to be a part of the union. Mm-hmm. And yet if it's known that they are not submitting dues, right, in their paycheck, to whoever can see those records, right? If they said, I want to opt out and go through the opt out process, that they become known and then they become ostracized within their schools, with their colleagues. And that's a common thing that's been a part of the union story legacy in this country forever. And so by removing this and just saying that if you want to join a union, then when you go home at night, you log in and you pay your dues, and you can continue to do so. But forcing people, and I know we're not forcing it because there's an opt-out measure in this state, but it certainly does feel like forced by shame, right?
Well, a lot, it's you don't get to sit at the cool kids table if you go against the union, because it's seen as disloyal, because after all, the union is standing up for you, right? If you get fired or disciplined, or you need more money or more benefits, the union's going to be there for you, right? And that's something to remember. A teachers union is not there representing the students; they're representing the teachers, and that isn't always the same thing. Sometimes it is, but not always. They're going to come to the defense of the teachers before the students. And of course, being a public sector union, their goal is to extract tax dollars for their own benefit.
Absolutely. I mean, where else are they going to get their money? I mean, the teachers make money from the state. And so that's why you see them always showing up to lobby for more and more money, more and more money. I mean, you're feeding the monster. It is how this happened. I mean, look, public sector unions, you can argue all day the for and the against and that sort of thing. But when they have a stranglehold like this, and it's the product that they're delivering with this indoctrination. Did you see that quote about the flag?
Mm-hmm. That was ridiculous.
I mean, the teacher saying this is not political. This is about stopping suicide. I mean, good God, my goodness. I mean, it's like standing on the grave of dead children, that have serious mental issues.
If you've read Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, about how transgenderism became a social contagion among teen and preteen girls, or if you've listened to the story of Chloe Cole, who transitioned and then detransitioned, they all say the same thing, that this suicide thing is used as a, putting a gun to a parent's head and saying, if you don't do this, if you don't support this, then your child's going to kill themselves. And it's almost like they encourage that in order to promote the ideology and expand their membership, I guess.
Yeah, it's sick. It's sick, everybody. This is a spiritual warfare. Our kids are right in the crosshairs. We gotta break the backs of this. We gotta break it from all angles. I love what I'm saying. I may not agree philosophically with every single tactic that's going on here, but when I look at this spiritual battle and the spiritual warfare, I just think, at the end of the day, God's gonna sort it all out, and it's gonna be right. I don't know if I'll be here when that happens, but by gosh, we got to do something. We got to do something for our kids here. Okay, Brian, very good. We had a bunch on tap last week about what was going last Friday when we were on, but we were watching the school choice tax credit thing. But I did want to update some folks on some interesting bills that were going on. And I'm wondering if we should take this one at a time here. Actually, real quick, this is a good clip. So this morning, Representative Monks presented a bill to omit small sellers from having to pay sales tax and such. And so we covered that. The bill passed committee. But you don't hear too much from Representative Charlie Shepard out in District 7. But he gave a great comment this morning about this bill. Are you familiar with the bill? Do you want to kind of give people a better update scenario of what it does?
Yeah, as far as I know, it just means that if you're a small business doing less than $5,000 a year, I think was the number, you don't have to get a seller's permit or do sales tax. And I think on a previous episode, I related how my wife and I in the past, we've done a gluten-free baking business where we'll just go to farmers markets or made to order stuff. And we had to get a seller's permit. We had to get a cottage foods permit, and we had to pay sales tax on that. And it was a bit of a pain. So this is an interesting bill.
Yeah, very much so. So here's Representative Shepard's take on it.
This bill smells like freedom, if I can quote one of my previous. And a lot of these sellers that have the little yard sales, a lot of times it's for a charity to where they're going to be donating the money to high school programs and different sorts. So I don't think the government needs to try to be putting its fingers in every little pot of money that's out there because we're starving to death. We've had a surplus in this state every year I've been here. We don't need to be bothering these smaller entities, and I think this is a good start.
Thank you, Representative Shepard. I was wondering what that smell was.
I love napalm in the morning.
I like Representative Shepard. He's very down to earth, and I think has a lot of good common sense about things.
Yeah, absolutely. Good guy. Okay. Another interesting bill is which actually caught some people by surprise. Representative Elaine Price from Coeur d'Alene presented a bill that would direct city councils, for the most part, I haven't read the entire thing yet, but for this example, would direct city councils that if you're going to have a consent calendar during your meetings, a consent agenda or a consent calendar, that it should be allowed that if a member of that city council takes an issue with one of the items in there, that they can pull it out for further discussion and have it voted on separately. Brian, you've been a part of some of these types of committees before. Can you walk us through a little bit what a consent calendar or a consent, sometimes it's named something different, but can you walk us through a little bit about what those things are?
Sure. So most, committees I've seen, our city council here in Eagle and the Eagle Library Board that I'm a part of, we have consent agenda. For example, on the library board, the approval of the previous minutes and the approval of bills incurred by the library director and staff, and sometimes a couple of other things are put on the consent agenda, and it's just, you can approve them with one motion. So we, presumably, trustees have had a chance to read the agenda, and we see what the items are and decide, okay, these are all fine. We don't need to pick through them one by one or debate them or do multiple motions. We'll just, move to accept the consent agenda as written and move on with the meeting. City council consent agendas here in Eagle can be 2 pages long. It's usually a lot of stuff, just approving some new building over here or approving some slight modification to a building over there, some project. Here in Eagle, we do have the ability. The mayor, members of the council, or members of the public can actually pull a consent agenda item. So if you're in the meeting and you're just a member of the public, you can actually, essentially raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to pull consent agenda item J for further discussion and a vote. But apparently not all municipalities or boards have that ability.
Yeah, and so for my take, that let's make all these cities more like Eagle. It sounds like. Here's Representative Barbara Ehart, who has sat on a city council before, voice why she's in support of this.
I too, having served on a city council, was in a situation where the items on the consent agenda, and I was almost before the representative, then he probably wouldn't have realized what I was saying. I was almost going to ask Representative Price, what does the word consent mean? Because to me, consent literally meant that all those who are approving of the consent item consented. And so I recall an incident where it wasn't normal business, and it was definitely something that should have been discussed. And I asked to remove it, and they didn't want to remove it. And I said, but I do not consent. And it was very frustrating. And so when Representative Price approached me about this, I was definitely in favor of that. So I concur with the good representative, and I will be supporting the motion.
Yeah, very good. So as you can see, it has happened in other places. There was some concern from the Democrat Representative Birch, and he had a few questions for Representative Price. So let's listen to that exchange.
The question I have is should it be just any one member of a governing body, or should it be, let's say, a majority of the board to do that? I'm just wondering if and I'm not familiar with how many items might be on a consent agenda, and someone just wants every single item to be, and can take a lot of time. So would it be more reasonable if it was more than, took more than just one person to be able to make this change to a meeting's agenda?
Representative Price.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. So the whole purpose of running this RS and clarifying the statute is that consent calendars were being used to put items in that should have been open for discussion, and then individual council members are finding these items and requesting that they be pulled out so the discussion can happen, and they're being told no. So that's why they should have the ability to be able to look at that consent calendar and say that item should not be in that consent calendar, and we need to have it for a discussion.
Follow-up or comment? Actually, for a comment, I will support the motion. But I would like to.
So
maybe...
that's the problem, right, Alman? When you start to abuse the process, then Big Daddy's got to come in and say, all right, well, these are the rules now. I mean, you guys in Eagle sound like you're reasonable people, and that's how you run things. But who knows? 10 years from now, you might get some tyrant in there that says, oh, no, I'm the only one that can take it off, or we need a majority of the board to say we can take it off. I mean, that's the whole point.
Well, and sometimes it's not even because it's a problem. It's just for further discussion. When I was appointed to the library board, there were some people who were worried I was going to go in there and start just burning books. It was pretty amusing. And the approval of my appointment was actually part of the consent agenda for the council meeting. And one of the council members pulled the item, and I was in the room and I was wondering, okay, what's going on? But he just wanted a chance to address those things and say that the council, I have the council's support, I have the mayor's support, and they're confident that I would, do well, which I appreciated. So sometimes they just want to pull an item for extra discussion. And if it ever got abused, I could see, maybe people getting, wanting to shut it down. But so far, like you said, we've been pretty reasonable here. In a regular council meeting that I've been to, usually they'll pull 1 or 2, 3 items that just need extra discussion before they vote on them.
Yeah, and the last point that I'll make too is, like, sometimes you're not allowed to discuss items in the meeting privately. So if you're a lone city council person and you have discovered some information that may sway the vote on something that you want to tell the rest of the board, you have to do that in a public setting. And how can you do that in a public setting if you can't debate it during the consent calendar session by pulling it out? So a lot of checks and balances go on here, man, and we got to be vigilant. I can't believe that we're sitting here debating what happens in a small city council with a consent calendar. But that's where we are, Alman. That's the state of our world right now.
Well, and like you said, you're not allowed to discuss things in private. I'm not allowed to actually just sit down with one of my fellow trustees and discuss ideas for how we're going to approach a certain issue. It has to be done in a public meeting. It's all about transparency. We have to be able to have those debates. If we have disagreements, it needs to be in public so people can see it. If we have new information we're going to bring up, like you said, it has to be in public. And you're right. These people, whoever puts together the agenda, the mayor or the council president or whomever, might not even know that something has people wanting to debate on it until you get to the meeting. So, not being able to pull an item from the consent agenda, it seems like a very small thing, but I think it's an important thing for maintaining transparency and trust in government.
Yeah, that's for sure. One place where that doesn't happen seems to be at the Boise Statehouse. There's conversations that go on outside of the public, out of the public view all the time.
It's a little different, but yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Well, let's look at this other. Did we show it was Barbara Ehart had an interesting bill here regarding sexual. Not sexual education per se, but anytime that there is material that deals with sexuality or some sort of, I don't know how you want to put it here, but there was a debate where she had said that she'd been trying to get this curriculum out here. And I'm sorry, guys, did I upload the wrong video here? Oh no, here it is down here. Yeah. Let's play a little bit of Barbara Ehart on this presentation on this sexual education stuff.
For us is a piece of legislation that some of those who've been here for a little while will recognize, and others it may be a little bit new. Make no mistake, this is about sexuality in our schools, and it's a sexuality opt-in. It is a parental rights bill. It returns the control to literally the parents on a subject matter that, as I said, in 2019 and 2021, we would see coming before our schools on such an increased basis that we wouldn't be able to keep up for Idaho, and that is what we have found is happening. Let me just tell you a couple other things. This is about consent, not content. And I want to be very clear. This does not prevent content from being taught. It's about the consent of the parent. Very different. In a hearing, assuming that I would get that, I will explain to you how our own statutes really define those rights as a parent and why this is important for us to be able to continue to make sure those rights, as defined in our state statutes, are enforced. The opt-out that most districts currently have leaves the responsibility with the student, meaning to make sure they take whatever information home and also bring it back. The opt-in clearly leaves that responsibility with the adults where it should be. And again, it is ultimately about a parental rights, parental involvement, transparency, and responsibility. So let me quickly take you through, and I'll try not to overdo it, but let me take you through the legislation. We add a definition for human sexuality. It was a point that had come up a couple years ago, so we add that definition. Line 25, section 331611(1), we do not touch. This is very important because the public out there is going to tell you differently. We do not touch our current sex education. We leave it, and I'm fine to do that because under our statutes, I'm actually fine with our sex education, particularly because we talk about the physiology and anatomy, or at least that which we should be doing. So this doesn't touch that. We leave that. Line 33(2), it basically explains that prior to any child receiving any education in sexuality, as human sexuality is defined, that they must have written permission from the parent. Now, the written permission really is that affirmation, that affirmative yes that I want, which really is a parent's right, that I want my child to participate in that. The teacher would then be
Alman,
required.
I don't know how familiar you are with the rest of this entire bill here, but this is, she made the point. This is not about touching sexual education. It's about opting your child into any discussions on human sexuality that may happen in other classes. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think like outside of sexual education, where you have strict curriculum that you're dealing with, is school the place to be talking about human sexuality anyway?
Well, I mean, it depends on where you draw the line. I know the leftists, the Democrats are going to start saying, well, what about this or what about that? You know, if you're going to read the Bible in class, what about where it mentions things like that? Or if you're reading about some history or piece of literature where, you know, somebody's having an affair or something, you know, things like that. But then on the other side, it's the classic Mott and Bailey argument where you got things where they're discussing transgenderism and in math class, which apparently it happens. So, I mean, switching it to opt-in, it obviously makes it a little more cumbersome, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It helps parents actually know what's being discussed in their child's classrooms.
And look, I mean, this is public education. And if we're going to have, this is where the government has all the strings, right? All the strings. The folks out there in homeschool land and private school land who say we don't want to have anything to do with the government because we don't want any of their strings. Well, if you're going to put kids into public school and we have a healthy legislature like we do right now, these are the strings that are going to be attached, and you're going to have to get through it. There was a representative church, the Democrat, did challenge Ehart on that very issue with the Bible, but we've run out of time here to get into all that. So, folks, we got a lot to cover this whole week. There's so much more coming up. We're paying attention to a lot of things out there. We want to remind you about the Signal boost. Can we put that back up, that graphic back up here, if we still have it in the queue? Senate Bill 1031. This adds better guidelines to the health districts so that they can't just arbitrarily go in there and violate your rights. That has a hearing tomorrow. Check back though and make sure it's still going to be scheduled. It was scheduled for today, and now it was rescheduled for tomorrow. So Tuesday, February 11. That's the number to call. That's the email. And you can also register to testify online. It'll happen 3 p.m. in Boise, 2 p.m. if you're up north and want to testify remotely. So that's our Signal boost for today. Alman, where can people follow you, and what are you working on this week?
JeffStateChronicle.com, as always. Obviously, the school choice bill is still going through, and there's, now that it hits the Senate, there's going to be a lot of debate. People are, concerned about, possible regulation of homeschooling. So I think we need to cover that. There's tons more legislation. It sounds like the chicken bill did pass the Senate, so that'll head over to the House, and that
very
will
good.
Start all over again. Yeah, and I've heard that there's some stuff coming up this week. This is the last week that new RSs can be introduced, so we're going to see some new stuff. I know House leadership has been talking about things related to campaign finance and lobbyist reporting and transparency there. So that'll be interesting to see as well.
Yeah, love it. Transparent. I'm all about transparency. Got no problem for me on transparency here. All right, Alman. We'll check back with you tomorrow. We'll see you then. All right, folks. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow. And boy, I just if you couldn't tell, this whole IEA stuff has really got me flustered, and I hope we can do something to fix it. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for watching. Please share the program, get the word out. It's been really great knowing that we're having a big impact on here in Idaho. All right, folks, take care. See ya.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.